Okay, today we're going to replace the door hinge pins on this 1970 Dodge Challenger. To do that, you can either replace the complete hinge or you can get a repair kit, which I have here. So you've got an upper and a lower pivot, and then the bushes which we're going to drill out and fit on the hinge mechanism. So it's fairly straightforward. Obviously if you're doing it on your own, the ideal thing to do is to support the door. I'm using my ramp to do the lifting, which is obviously takes out the hassle. So we're on one side of the garage using one paddle to support the weight of the door. The door itself weighs probably about 50 kilos, it's pretty heavy. These muscle cars were built like tanks, but not much rust proofing unfortunately. So straightforward to do. Do the two bolts on the inner. There's two bolts behind the plate which I've just taken out, and there's one hidden, or kind of hidden, inside the bulkhead underneath. Once you've got your hinge assembly off, you can clearly see, if you look closely at the top pivot there is actually some free play. This is what causes the issue with the door dropping. You can also see it in that position as well. There's a lot of movement and play in that hinge mechanism, and this is causing the door to drop probably about an inch, which is unacceptable and needs to be sorted. So the hinge assembly itself fits obviously on the door. This is on the bulkhead side on the car, this is the door side. The important bit is when you're going to change these pins, the pins that go through, the paint and dirt you can see is kind of masks everything, but if you look on the other side, you see there's kind of a big head. So the pin itself drifts out that way downwards. Once we get the pin out, it'll expose all the wear and tear. We can then drill out and ream the pivot section in the centre with some new bushes and then a new pin, and this will eliminate all the wear and tear in the hinge mechanism. So with the hinge part, everything becomes a lot clearer. Obviously you can see the new parts, the new pin and new bushes, and it does actually appear to be a bit simpler than I at first assumed. The original bushing is also brass, and so it's a matter of replacing the inserts to the collars, which is sized to the pin, and that will replace all the worn parts and give you the tolerances back which you require to set the door up with the correct alignment, and obviously not have any lateral movement in any way where it isn't required. So removing the bush is relatively straightforward. I'm using a little bit of packing wood and a socket as a guide. You can now slide in your punch, catch the back of the bush and drift out each side of the bush in turn. Same way for driving out the centre pin. Is balance the hinge mechanism on top of a socket, a suitably sized socket. In this case it's 14mm, and it clearly fits, as you can see, the head of the pin through. So once you balance everything on top of there and drift downwards, the pin will drift out without any fuss. I did try it in the vise, and it decided it was trying to get away from me, and there was other issues. So this is by far the easiest way, and the physics of it make it just easier to do, and there's less effort involved. So that's the preferred method. Once you've drifted out your bushes, you can use your vise or just simply tap them in with a hammer, top and bottom, to remove the play. You can see from there now just how much play and wear is in that bush. It is quite excessive. Well, it doesn't probably look much there, but what it does is 1mm of play at this end, at the door hinge end, will amplify to roughly half inch to an inch, depending on the amount of wear. Because as the thing is rocking just a tiny bit, it will transfer and amplify down to the lock side, the striker, and this is where you get issues then with your door not fitting or not closing properly. So a straightforward repair, probably about an hour to half an hour each side, top and bottom, and everything will be good as new. So we'll carry on. So when finished, everything should look like it is, and the bushing in the centre, the bronze or copper bushing, I think it's bronze, in the centre pivot, does need a little bit of finessing. It's a little bit delicate, using either a hand drill just to ream it out gently. Obviously keep the thing turning, don't get any flat spots, because you'll oval the hole and cause the same problem as you've already got. And it's quite a snug fit. When you build it back up, don't do the mistake I made, which is what I was planning not to do. I checked it twice, pressed it back in, and it was the wrong way round, so I had to press it back out and then turn it round, turn the pin round. I had the pin in the wrong way round basically, which meant that this shackle piece was the wrong way up, which then therefore made this the driver's side door top hinge instead of the passenger side door top hinge, which is all well and good if you're doing a full set, which I will be doing, but I'm trying to keep it so everything stays the same on the hand, which way handed they are. So any tricky bits on there are going to be, once you've got out the bushing, the old piece of bushing, the trick to do is use a drift again like I did with a socket, and again size the socket up so that it will fit snugly in the sleeve of the socket, so you can use that as you drift, or as your base to drift through to release the bearing. Once that was out, clean it up, and then with a hammer and balance that on another socket, and then you can drift in your pivots. Once they're in, size your pivots using I used an 8.5mm drill. That seemed to work the best, and just a bit of patience, by hand, ream it out to get the sizing you want. So it's a nice interference fit, but not a seized fit. It don't want to be a press fit. It needs to have, the fit really is not an interference fit, but because with the newness of it and they're going in, you want to put them in with some grease as well when you do your final fit. That way you introduce the lubrication into the joint as well as into the hinge. So once that's done, reinstall it back on the car, and you're good to go. When everything's back together, check the alignment, get your panel fit adjusted, front and rear. Bit difficult to see, the blackness isn't actually the gap, it's black paint what I use for my edge protection, and that's a different story. I'll go through that with rust protection on another video. The important thing is the fit and finish. Now, as you can see, the door opens and closes with one hand. Before, you'd open the door and it would physically drop a good inch. If you watch the top of the door, this point here, you can see on opening there's now no movement at all. So that's what we're after. Again, as I say, these gaps all need sorting at a later date. We can sort that now once we get the other bottom pivot done on the door, and that will allow us then to align the door properly and finally fit the panels properly, ready for paint at a future date. Okay, thanks for watching.